You've just heard the intro music to a podcast letting you know the podcast has begun. Now you are listening to the actual podcast after finding said podcast on the interwebs. Podcasts can be used for a variety of things, which this podcast will now describe. Podcast.
You could use your podcast as a tour of the world, or someplace slightly smaller. It will go along the lines of, look up, you should see the ceiling, or the sky. Look down, you should hopefully see the floor, unless you are falling, or upside down.
Podcasts can be used for group discussion on subjects some people may care about.
Yes, indeed. Some podcasts are just groups of people sitting around talking about something, or more often than not, nothing in particular.
That's fascinating. I love sitting around talking about things, especially podcasts.
I've found that the majority of podcasts like this end up talking about politics.
I hate politics.
Me too.
Let's not talk about politics.
We interrupt this podcast with a news podcast. News just in. Podcasts have been found to talk about the news, or in fact be news bulletins, providing listeners with all sorts of news-type informations about stuff that has happened. These often include at-the-scene reporting like this. We go to Lily live at the scene.
Thanks, James. I'm live at the scene, providing actuality to make the listener feel part of the action and that the story did actually happen. Listen to all the actuality around me, relevant to what I'm talking about here in my podcast. I could also interview someone like this man.
Hello.
Hi, I'm interviewing you about podcasts.
Yes, you are interviewing me on the topic of your podcast to get another opinion.
I find your opinion fascinating and informative.
Thanks for interviewing me.
This interview is over now.
Please don't leave.
If you weren't sure, that was music. Podcasts can be downloadable music shows talking about new music releases, old music, good music, bad music, and musical music. It basically means the person making the podcast has to talk for less time while they play music. They may be having a biscuit in this time.
www.stephenfry.com.
Some funny people, like Stephen Fry, have their own podcasts. Some unfunny people, like Ricky Gervais, also have their own podcasts. I don't know why. Ask Dan Chisman. He knows them.
Talking about knowing things, some podcasts are made to teach you about something you didn't know before, and will know slightly more about after. This could be languages because you feel you need to know Spanish for your week-long treat to Ibiza, or useless random facts that are only good for pub quizzes. And since you're listening to a podcast, you probably don't go to the pub that often, unless it's on your own, in the corner, drinking Malibu from a shoe.
If you want to get the opinion of the general public, and by that we mean the jobless wasters who are in the town centre at 11 o'clock in the morning, you can include Vox Pops. These are quick and short statements from lots of members of the public. This usually involves standing around for hours on end being told to fuck off, then going home and recording your mum. She's just happy for the company. I like Vox Pops.
Vox Pops are useless and pointless.
To be honest, mate, I don't really see why they're needed.
You now need to think of a way to end your podcast. It needs to wrap up and summarise everything you've talked about in your podcast. It should be concise, witty and succinct. Like this. Bye.